Alright, so YNW Melly. That's a name I haven't talked about on this channel in a while. If you've been with me for a minute, you know that almost 3 years ago I covered the YNW Melly trial day by day, all the way up until it ended, in this trial. When that happened, we figured it would be a while before we talked about Melly again. We just didn't think it would be 3 years. Recently, though, Melly and his double murder case have been back in the news. That's mainly because his retrial is now set to begin in September of this year. On top of that, Melly has been fighting for bond for over 6 years. Let me be clear. He hasn't been convicted of anything yet, but he's been sitting in jail this whole time, and I think that's absolutely wild. Don't take that as me saying I think Melly is innocent, because that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, 6 years behind bars without a conviction is insane. Now, I do understand that in some cases, people need to be detained to make sure they don't flee before trial. Maybe a year at most. But 6 years? That's extreme. Either convict him or let him go. That's how I feel. But at the end of the day, how I feel doesn't matter. In December of 2023, Melly's defense team actually filed a motion for continuance. In that motion, Melly waived his constitutional right to a speedy trial. That decision gave both his defense team and the prosecution more time to prepare for the upcoming trial. The additional time granted by the waiver allowed both sides to prepare for the retrial without being constrained by Florida's typical 180-day time frame under the speedy trial rule. However, that waiver has also contributed to significant delays in the proceedings. The retrial was initially rescheduled for October 2023, but has since been postponed multiple times. It's now set to begin in September 2025. Melly's situation is one you can really learn from. While waiving your right to a speedy trial can be a strategic legal move, in Melly's case, it has resulted in him remaining in custody for 2,226 days as of today, with little he can do about it except wait for trial and continue pleading for bond, which he's been doing for years. Melly is on trial for the 2018 murders of his two close friends, YNW Juvie, whose real name was Christopher Thomas, and YNW Sackchaser, also known as Anthony Williams. The case has drawn widespread media attention, with fans and legal analysts closely following every development. As the trial approaches, questions around the evidence, motive, and what really happened continue to fuel public speculation. According to prosecutors, Melly, along with co-defendant YNW Bortlin, real name Portland Henry, staged the crime scene to make it appear as if the two victims were killed in a drive-by shooting. Melly now faces 2 counts of first-degree murder, charges that carry the possibility of the death penalty if he is convicted. Because of the seriousness of the charges, and for several other reasons, prosecutors have argued that Melly poses a significant risk if released. While in custody, he has also been accused of witness tampering. These allegations stem primarily from Melly's ex-girlfriend, Mariah Hamilton, and her mother, Felicia Holmes. Prosecutors claim that Melly used intermediaries to communicate with gang members and attempted to dissuade his ex-girlfriend from testifying. They allege he did the same with her mother, trying to prevent both women from taking the stand. Prosecution argues that these actions demonstrate a coordinated effort to obstruct justice, and they believe that if Melly is released, he could continue interfering with the legal process. They're using this argument to support his continued detention, citing the seriousness of the charges and claiming they have evidence linking Melly directly to the scene of the crime. From their perspective, he poses a danger to the public and is a significant flight risk. They argue that due to Melly's financial resources, he could easily flee the country if released. Despite these claims, Melly's defense team has proposed a series of strict conditions that he would follow if granted bond. These include house arrest, 24-hour private security, GPS monitoring, and bond funding provided by his record label. However, the judge has previously denied bond, and a decision on his most recent request is still pending. That brings us to some new footage from the courtroom released today, where we see Melly's defense team and the prosecution going back and forth over these issues.
The defense and prosecution went back and forth in court over whether Melly deserves to be granted bond. Let's take a look at some of the key arguments presented. The defense began by stating, "There's no law, statute, or rule that says we can't come back and argue for his release after a year and a half, considering everything that's been going on." The judge acknowledged that point, responding, "I agree with you. That's why we're here today." According to Florida law, a circuit court may exercise discretion to grant pretrial release if the defendant can demonstrate that specific conditions would 1. Effectively protect the public from physical harm, 2. Ensure the defendant's presence at trial, and 3. Protect the integrity of the judicial process. Additional factors from prior case law also play a role, particularly the risk of flight. The defense then outlined their proposal for Melly's release, suggesting a minimal monetary bond under strict conditions. These included: Melly would remain at his new residence under house arrest. He would not be allowed to possess any firearms. He would wear a standard pretrial GPS ankle monitor. A professional security team would be in place, including one guard accompanying Melly 24/7 and 2 additional guards stationed on the property to secure the perimeter of the house. They also noted that they had listed a member of the security company as a potential witness, although they did not intend to call him to the stand.
The defense continued, explaining that any infractions by Mr. Demons would be reported directly to the legal team, the state attorney's office, and the court. You'd basically have your own paid deputy with him, the attorney stated. They argued that Mr. Demons is not a flight risk. He does not possess a passport, and to their knowledge, doesn't currently have a driver's license. They emphasized that he has consistently appeared at every court hearing and would continue to do so. With GPS monitoring, the court would always know his location, virtually eliminating concerns about him failing to appear in court. The defense proposed a combination of house arrest, 24-hour security, and GPS tracking as an effective way to meet the conditions required for release, protecting the public, ensuring court appearances, and maintaining the integrity of the proceedings. They also addressed the prosecution's claims that Melly poses a danger to the community, arguing that this was a single alleged incident, not part of an ongoing pattern of criminal behavior. The attorney noted that in most precedent-setting cases involving public safety concerns, the defendant was often a drug dealer who posed an ongoing threat through continued illegal activity. That's not the issue here, the attorney said. This was a singular event. If there were real concerns about public safety, I believe we've addressed them with our proposed stipulations: house arrest, no firearms, and full-time electronic monitoring. So, essentially, what the defense is offering is what you might call the standard wrapper bail package at this point: GPS tracking, house arrest, and private security, to argue that Melly can safely await trial outside of jail. Melly's defense team proposed that he hire a security company to monitor him 24/7, a move we've seen other rappers like NBA Youngboy get away with. Lil Durk attempted something similar, but his judge hasn't approved it yet. This proposal is essentially the same bail package that YNW Melly is offering, except that he's requesting a minimum cash bond. This means he doesn't want to put up $1 million and a bunch of real estate to secure his bond, probably because he simply doesn't have it. He's been locked up for so long, and while I'm not sure about his financial situation, I can imagine his legal defense is costing him a lot of money. In addition to the minimum bond, his defense is also asking for the standard conditions we've become familiar with in rapper bail cases. They argued that Melly should be granted bond because he's been incarcerated for 6 years already. To address concerns about him being a flight risk, they pointed out that when Melly was arrested in 2019, he had the opportunity to flee, but he chose to turn himself in. The defense is using this to argue that Melly has no intention of running. They also claim that Melly didn't have any knowledge of Mariah Hamilton's actions.